Welcome to the Big Mike Fund podcast, where you'll learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in, because Big Mike has got the mic. Starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fund podcast. I'm the Big Mike.
Mike Zlotnik, and today it is my pleasure and a privilege to welcome Derek Dombeck. Hi, Derek.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on a podcast. Let me give you a short intro. As a successful investor, national speaker, and international best-selling author, Derek has surfed the ups and downs of the market since 2003. Derek's expertise ranges from creating for creative deal structuring, wholesaling, flipping, landlording, and to lending and investing throughout the years. He has been involved in thousands of transactions in his career, and what sets him apart is his love for people and their success. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Mike. I love coming on shows like this. You and I were talking a little bit before we started the show, and we've got so many things in common, but I just want to bring value to your group.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And before the call, we talked about a couple of great strengths that you have. For example, helping folks to negotiate better. We'll talk about that topic, right? And the other thing you mentioned, you are out of Wisconsin. So we'd love to hear about your expertise, experience on Wisconsin market, both as equity owner and you were a lender for many years. So let's start. Let's start by talking about Wisconsin. It's Midwest. It's close to Canada. Given where we are now with the uncertainty, tariffs on and off, how's Wisconsin doing? How's real estate doing in Wisconsin?
Well, the nice thing, we're kind of unknown in the upper Midwest, and a lot of market fluctuations don't affect us. So we don't get the big run-ups in value, but we don't get the big, declines in value either. And we can still buy properties that cash flow, and not in every city or every market of the state, but there's a lot of them that we can. And I've always loved that about the state. A lot of the places like I'll buy real estate across the entire area, the entire state of Wisconsin. So it is different depending where we go, but I don't mind the small towns. And I've made a lot of good deals and a lot of money just working those small areas that to most people, they would overlook it. So I love that part of it.
Now we're talking about residential real estate, just to be very clear. You're finding homes that you can buy, renovate, if you need to renovate, and then rent them out as sort of a passive income type of an asset. Do you own these type of properties, or do you typically sell them to an investor? I'm just curious, what do you do most? Do you hold rental portfolios, or you do fix, flip to somebody who will own a passive investment in, let's just call it, not big town Wisconsin?
The answer is both, Mike, and it depends on how I buy the property. So one of the things that I truly enjoy is creative deal structuring, solving people's problems, and that might involve taking over their debt subject to, it might involve seller financing. What I really like is putting options on property, and sometimes controlling the property with a lease, but other times just holding a straight option where, as an example, maybe somebody's got financial trouble and they need $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to get out of their financial trouble, but they don't want to sell their property. Then we'll step in, we'll analyze the deal, give them the money they need, and lock in an option to buy that for the next 10 or 20 years. And they get to keep the property, they get out of their current problem, and we get to enjoy the upside of that property in the future. And it's a great thing to do with your retirement accounts. So if I buy it for cash, I'm typically fixing it and reselling it. If I buy it on terms, I'm typically keeping it.
That's really cool. It's I know quite a few guys who do this creative finance, and yeah, especially today, if you could take over a property that's got a 30-year fixed mortgage at 3.5% or 4%, you could come up with pretty creative ways to give them a higher price because you're getting taking over the existing mortgage. And from that perspective, you're getting the cash flow.
That's correct. And with our market right now, people are not selling their homes as quickly. They're becoming open to discussions about alternative methods of selling their property. We just recently closed on a house that we paid full retail for the house, but in exchange for paying them the full retail, we had to get terms that made sense. And our terms were, we will not pay you more than 40 to 45% of the gross rents for a monthly payment. So we locked that house in on an 8-year deal with a balloon at 0% interest at $800 a month. And that property will lease out for $2,000 a month. So it's like a teeter-totter, Mike. If they pick price, we got to be able to pick terms. If they pick terms, we got to be able to pick price. Or it's not a deal for either side.
Yeah, I love the approach. I've heard this from many folks in the past. Don't be worried purely on one variable. If the price is too high, but the terms are great, that's good enough. And if the terms are not good, then the price has to be better. So you can negotiate what makes sense. So let us now kind of shift a little bit to negotiation. We might come back to Wisconsin market. But how do you negotiate with folks? Because basically, you have a great strength in negotiation. You're an expert negotiator. How do you negotiate and figure out, is this person a good candidate for a terms offer or a cash offer? Or how do you go through the process?
So this is a pet peeve of mine, Mike, that people will spend all kinds of time learning a tactic. Maybe it's lending or wholesaling or rehabbing, being a landlord, but they don't spend any time learning how to actually talk to people. And all a negotiation is a social interaction. And everything that I learned over the years and what I teach people today is just how do you talk and have a social interaction. Now you're doing it intentionally. You know what your goal is, but you don't do it with malicious intent to take advantage of anybody. But I don't have to voice to you that I need to hit a certain profit margin. I just really need to find out what you need and solve your problem. And if I can solve your problem and it hits my profit margins, I know that we can move forward. So the beginning steps of it, and by the way, this is whether you're buying something, selling something, raising money, working with a contractor, a banker, it doesn't matter. All of these tactics are universal. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is within the first 2 to 3 minutes of any conversation, I'm looking for clues as to what your personality type is. So Mike, if I feel like you're an analytical person and I'm not an analytical person, in fact, I'm not, I'm more of a driver. I'm a quick decision maker. I need to speak to you in ways that you're actually going to hear me, not just listen. And so if I'm talking really quick to you and I'm glossing over facts and you're analytical, there's a very large chance we're never going to move forward in that negotiation. But if I recognize that you're analytical and I start giving you data, and I guess let's just pretend that you're selling me a house, right? I'm going to start showing you comps. I'm going to talk about what the cost of the rehab is going to be, but break it down step by step. You're going to be more willing to continue that conversation. And so that's very basic, but that's where most people miss. I feel like in the beginning of every conversation is you're only thinking about yourself. Well, I have to think about who's receiving the words that are coming out of my mouth, the body language, the tone, all of that. And now we can get down to the root of what you really need. And once I know that, the rest is just solving the problem. And that may be a creative structure, that may be a cash offer, that may be just me referring you to somebody else and being honest with you and saying, Mike, I'm not your best option, but I can connect you with Bob and Bob can help you. Well, if I do that, just always leave value. And if I can do that, well, then in the future, Mike, you would probably refer me to somebody else. And now we get referral business. So that's very basic, but I feel like it's very glossed over. People don't recognize that.
So That makes a lot of sense. Step number one is who you're dealing with, right? Their personality type, are they analytical, are they an emotional person, are they decision maker or not? And quite often you're talking to the person who could even make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
So all that you're trying to figure out your next move, right? But that what's important is before you start a sales process, if you don't know who you're dealing with, you don't know what approach to take. So you can't take the right approach without getting some clarity on who they are, how they function, how they think, what they respect and value. Understood. What's the step number two?
So step number two, at this point, once you realize who you're talking to, you have got to what's called frame control. You've got to be the one leading this conversation at all times. And one of my favorite resources for frame control is a book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And then he had a follow-up book called Flip the Script. And I have read this book probably 24 times, both of them. But in every social interaction, which is a negotiation, there is an alpha and there's a beta. If you don't know which one you are, you're not the alpha. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with being the leader and being the alpha. And you have to lead this conversation again to a conclusion that you've already drawn in your mind, but again, without manipulating. I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody or lead them into something that's not beneficial for them. So you have what's called frame control, and then there's frame collisions. And one of the examples that I would use is let's say that you walk into a doctor's office, right? And you're there for a physical. Well, who's automatically presumed to be in control of that frame? The doctor. Okay. So can you take control of that social interaction? You can, with little acts of defiance. Even better than a doctor, I'll use a banker. Okay. When you walk into a banker's office and you sit down across the desk from a banker, whose chair sits higher when you're at their desk?
Well, typically it's the banker. Typically they sit in an elevated chair. You sit in a more relaxed down chair. This is again depends on the office, of course, but
they're posturing, right? They're the alpha. In their mind, they're the alpha. And in their mind, they're in control of everything that happens in that room. Well, if you want to bend to their will, fine. But if you want to be truly in control of that negotiation, you have to let them know without upsetting them that you are in charge. So little acts of defiance. Here's an example. I don't wear suits and ties ever. If I am ever seen in a tie, it's probably my funeral, and I'm going to haunt whoever put a tie on me for my funeral. Okay. So they may be posturing, and I might just say something funny like, I'm sorry I'm in this t-shirt today, but my Armani suit is at the cleaners. And that little act of defiance just told them, I don't really care that you are sitting there as fancy as you are. But it's not disrespectful. It's said very lighthearted. Okay. Another frame collision to take back control is say somebody's name wrong intentionally. And if they don't notice it the first time, do it a second time. And you will set them back on their heels and you will take control of that frame again. So we can literally just be having a conversation and I would just be like, well, Matt, I don't know. I mean, I think frame control is an important thing. And instantly in your head, you may not voice it, but you're like, my name's not Matt, it's Mike. How does this punk not know my name? And it sets you back on your heels. Okay.
that's pretty interesting. I guess it can work as a two-way sword. You're getting them on their heels, like you're saying. Instead of a smooth conversation, it could be a little bit more of like you said, you're putting them on alert that the conversation will go a little differently from what they thought it would.
Right.
For good or the bad.
And if you said, well, Derek, my name's not Matt, it's Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I call you Matt? I really apologize. But I still got the same result that I needed. I got you back on your heels, and I am now in control of that negotiation. And it's a lot of fun when you get good at it. And by the way, practicing this type of stuff can be done every day in any social interaction. It can be done with your kids, your spouse, people at a gas station or whatever, right? You can have fun with this. You can just play with all these little tactics, especially when they don't matter. The outcome doesn't matter is the best time to work on them and practice. So I've done this for a long time, and it just becomes second nature. Of course, early on, all these different things you have to think about and practice. But it can be a really fun experiment.
That is, yeah, I can hear it. And so just quickly giving you the opportunity to sort of talk about this. Do you teach people how to do this? Do you have a training program? Because it's cool stuff. It's definitely learning how to negotiate is a fine art. Do you have a class, a training, a
I
webinar?
do. I put on a couple different things. I do a monthly or bi-monthly. I'm sorry. I should be better at this. I'm good at speaking. Twice a month, I put on what's called the Elite Negotiations Academy, and what it is just an hour where I take a recorded negotiation, whether it's one of mine or one of the members, and we all listen to it on a Zoom call, and I pick it apart, and all of those are recorded and archived. And then I do actually have a 2-day training I did live, and we recorded it, put it into modules, and it's called No Means Not Yet. And it's an online course now that people can just jump in and take and go back to it as often as they want. But the reason I really put that together, it's not that I want to be selling, seminars and all these different things. It's that there's nothing else like it out there. And I want to give people a resource that they couldn't really get. But just recognize my primary business is I'm a real estate investor. And I got good at this because it was a necessity. And I started teaching people just one-on-one, and people started asking me about the same question you did, like, how can we learn this? So we put it together.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing, and it's good to hear that I guess you ate your own cat food or dog food first, and then you realize this sort of works, and then you turn this into a repeatable educational platform where folks can benefit by participating, learning. It's designed. It has worked for you and should work for many other folks. And I do like some of the concepts you're talking about. They make a lot of sense. So,
And it's not rocket science. It's really not. It is just always being conscious of what you're doing and what you're saying. And the best way to learn it is record your own negotiations. I don't go into a room, to buy a property without my voice recorder on my phone, recording it. And then I can leave that meeting, go back and listen to it. And I pick apart everything I did, everything they did, how they reacted, how I reacted. And just over time, that's how I got better and better.
Yeah, practice makes perfect, especially if you have a very straightforward negotiation on similar type of product, like a house, right? You're meeting with the current owners, and you're trying to solve their problem. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about understanding what they want, and if you can offer a solution, then you can have a win-win. If you can't offer a solution, then it's just you're not wasting time. At least you have some clarity. So I'm pretty familiar with this through a number of groups and masterminds I've been a part of over the years. But I have to say the basics are still the same. You still have to listen and understand them first before understand before you seek to be understood. And whatever offer you have, especially if you can tune it, you could have a solution. At the end of the day, people don't get paid for listening to problems, for complaining about problems, for understanding problems. They get paid for engineering solutions. That is the most value creation. So if you can engineer a solution that works, but it does take practice. So all I have to say that everything you said, that you gotta listen to your own conversation and learn from your own mistakes, right? Because we're all human, we make mistakes. So if you can learn from your own mistakes, you'll hopefully make fewer of them and make maybe you'll make the new mistakes, but at least you could fix the old ones.
Well, and I will give you a third nugget real quick is you want to overcome people's objections before they are voiced, because we all know the common objections in whatever negotiation we're in. And the best way to overcome objections is through storytelling. And so if I tell you a story before you voice an objection, again, I'm buying your house. I know the common objections, right? I'm a low baller. I'm just trying to take advantage. Well, I want to bring these things up first, but doing it in a story form. And the other part is, again, always knowing what you want as a conclusion. I had a lead a couple years ago, and within the first 3 minutes, I knew I was never going to buy this property. The guy did not have any debt. It was free and clear. I want to say he wanted $350,000 for this house. I knew it would never cash flow for me. So instead of hanging up and saying, thanks for your time, I pivoted. And at that time, and even to this day, I raised private capital. I raised private capital for all my real estate deals. So I just said to him, it's pretty clear I'm not going to be the buyer for your house, but when you sell your house to somebody else, what are you going to do with the money? And then we start talking about investments. And I said, well, I happen to run a lending company. We pay our investors 9% return for their money. We lend it out at, 12 to 13%. Is that something that you'd be interested in chatting about in the future? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I'm only getting, 6-7% return, whatever it was at the time. I said, okay, this was April. I said, can I follow up with you August 1st? And he said, sure. I put it in my calendar. I called him August 1st, and he was set to close on that property August 6th. He closed that property. He invested $300,000 with us on a dead lead that 99% of everyone else in the world would have just walked away from. So knowing the conclusion you always want and pivoting are key.
Yeah, that's a great wisdom. I will absolutely recognize your thinking here, especially when you have a few tools in the toolbox, where if somebody can't sell your house, can they invest with you? And by pivoting, you have different opportunities, and you kind of in your head you're adjusting what this person could be a relationship. As another example, if you can't buy the house and somehow they can't invest with you, maybe you can get a listing, right? You can find a way to monetize the conversation if there's an opportunity there. But it makes a lot of sense.
And you're still helping them. That's the key. This guy was getting a better return. And by the way, within a year, he put another $500,000 into our fund. So that turned into an $800,000 conversation.
That's pretty cool. I have to acknowledge and just again give you all the credit where it's due. It's the right type of thinking. I like how you think, and it's not a fast path, but it's the right path. It's the path where we all face fast-paced and you'd like to get to the results, but without understanding first, you can't really offer people a solution. So you are seeking to understand first before you're trying to be understood, and that's very important. So a lot of people struggle listening, and listening is a incredible skill. If you can actually not only listen but recognize what you're hearing and adjust the tone, and that is like you said, it's a vital part of negotiation. It's almost like you said, if you're meeting with a person, what is their wavelength? If you're going to talk to them on a different wavelength, they may not hear you, and that's not easy to do. So I greatly appreciate it, and that this is a great example. So let's go back for a second to Wisconsin, and we'll talk a little bit about the market, and we have a couple of minutes. And I usually ask what are the great books, but you already mentioned them. So maybe you'll get a chance to repeat some of these great negotiation books again for the folks who are listening in. But back to Wisconsin. Are you seeing, is construction been healthy? So what is supply-demand equilibrium for residential properties? Is the market, like you said, the entire country has been in a sort of a seller's market, not enough supply. Mm-hmm. But with interest rates being high and affordability having fallen, with interest rates being high and kind of the price is still holding up, lots of markets are beginning to see that the what used to be seller's market now is becoming less of a seller's market. Are you seeing that in your neck of the woods? And is it creating new opportunities to buy? And obviously, creative finance is a key part of this equation, because sometimes you just can't make a deal unless you offer creative finance, and that's what you do. So just talk a little bit about the market and the opportunities ahead.
Yeah. So one of the most important things I did when I owned a lending company was I tracked the average days on market to sell across all the different towns, cities that we lent money in. And I still do that. So if I'm buying a property in like Madison, Wisconsin, which is our state capital and a second largest population center, the average days on market is still very short, 7 to 14 days. The other more rural areas, smaller towns, we're seeing 45 to 60 days. And some outlying areas are hitting 90 to 120 days. So I am going to watch that very closely. I see opportunity. I love market shifts. I was tickled to death when the interest rates went up, and I was very outnumbered by people that were not happy about it. But to me, that's opportunity. Number one, it weeds out the part-timers that, let's be honest, 3 years ago, if they found a good deal, they made money. They didn't have to have any actual knowledge. They just made money. But we need a thinning of the herd when it comes to real estate agents and wholesalers and, pretender lenders, and it's across any industry, right? It's good to have ups and downs. And if you have the knowledge, you can make money in any market. So I look at now as an opportunity to buy more property that I'll want to hold longer term, because I can buy it on creative terms. I don't typically use banks. I actually haven't used a bank in 15 years to buy investment property. And I never say never, but I don't have intentions of it anytime soon. So yeah, I think there's opportunity both throughout Wisconsin as well as just the Midwest. And there's a lot of markets where they can't buy cash flow, and they're going to try and come to the Midwest and buy. And typically they overpay, but they're still happy because it's way better than what they could get on the East Coast, West Coast, and some of those places.
Yeah, appreciate that wisdom. I'll just add one quick comment. Again, we're recording this in late part of March of 25, and most definitely acknowledgement that the quality of the opportunity has increased in the high interest rate environment. We host from time to time these industry experts panels, and just comments from the last panel, we do them twice a year when we're not running this as a frequent occurrence. The same message, even 6 months ago. We have another one coming up in April, but the important point is very simple. When everything is hunky-dory, everything is wonderful, the opportunities to buy are fewer, and everybody's a genius. And when the market shifts and things get difficult, if you want to deploy new capital to work, if you want to negotiate new deals and get better deals, now is the time. When the market is dislocated, the market is there's some challenges that prevail. So typically recessions create these opportunities, right? That people lose jobs and then create some level of distress. Rapid shifts in interest rate environment or other changes in regulatory or trade or immigration. And we're seeing this. We're seeing actually a lot of things changing right now with the new administration. So I will absolutely appreciate what you said, that the opportunities to find better deals if you're looking to buy is exactly now, when there's a lot of uncertainty and changes, and it creates these ripples in the water, the opportunity ripples. So from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Let's go back. Any final thoughts, any final sharing? How would folks reach out to learn about your negotiation programs? Repeat the books, please. And any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love for anybody that wants to hear another podcast that I bring on people like yourself and other great people from around the country to talk about different aspects of investing. It's the Generations of Wealth podcast, and and I do that. It's a weekly show. But everything that I do, you can find at derekdombeck.com, and the Elite Negotiations Academy. There's a link there. The No Means Not Yet stuff is there. But honestly, to any of your listeners, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, this is not a sales pitch. I truly just like helping people, and just reach out. I would love to do it. And ultimately, I think the biggest mistake most people make, and I made it, was not building a network. And I didn't have a network in my first half of my career, and now I have an incredible network of people, and in part to doing things like this, right? Getting to know other hosts and spending a little time together. So I want to be a resource for everybody that's listening too.
That's wonderful. Your network is your net worth, and that's the good old expression. And if you'd be so kind to repeat the books,
yes.
A couple of great books that
Yes.
I just make sure that you mentioned a couple of times, and they were fundamentally great books. So if you would be so kind.
Yes, the author is Oren Klaff. The first book is Pitch Anything, and his follow-up was Flip the Script. You should read them in that order. And if you go to my website, I was a co-author in a couple of international best-selling books, and there's a free download on that website as well. One is called Next Level Your Life. The other one's called The Transformational Journey, and was blessed to be asked to be in both of those books. So free to anybody that wants them.
Derek, thank you for showing. Appreciate you coming on a podcast. And it's derekdombeck.com is the website. And thank you, and enjoy the spring.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to BigMikeFund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike Zlotnick. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.